Alright guys, this is the gear for today. We're going to do a bowl lather with the same gear we used yesterday. Going to keep going with the Nacet. 608 will be the count for today in terms of uses. We have the vegan version of the venerable Tabac. Born in the 1950s, was the tallow version. And this is the vegan version that was redefined in 2024. It's not the 21, that first vegan version, but it's the one from 24. And you can tell that by the presence of palm oil products in the mix. Be using the Semogue Owners Club with the Taj handle. Be using the wielder of the Nacet, the stainless steel razor from Timeless, 68 gap. And this is the open comb variant. All right. Get the brush back in the water. And I still have the soap. We'll see if it stays put. Once you use the soap, then a lot of times it cements itself as the water dries and things like that. And that's why I recommend not using a flexible container. I did that once, and just the fact that when it moves, it would unseat the puck in the bottom of the container, and then it would move around again. So a firm container is better if you have it. I left it open so that water would not pool up in little recesses or anything like that. Let's show you the razor blade. There's going to be a point where my blades turn 10 years old. I just bought so many, found great deals back in 2017 maybe. And they don't really go bad unless you store them in a moist, humid environment and they start to get a little bit of rust. So I may be shaving with antiques in a few years. And then of course, using this Nacet 600 times, that has robbed me of using blades on that many shaves. So yeah, let's do a bowl lather today. We did with this Tabac formulation yesterday a face lather, kind of a slurry lather. I discovered that this version with the palm oil was a good version. It wasn't great like the tallow Tabac, but it was very good. It was slick. I did end up with a little bit of tenderness at the end of the shave, but we are going to hold judgment on that because maybe that's the blade, who knows. And I did notice the lack of good secondary slickness. After an area had been shaved, if I went over here and was working and I wanted to go back and do this again, then I should re-lather. I mean, that's not a big problem because most soaps you kind of want to do that with anyway. But the best soaps you don't often have to, especially if you hydrate your lathers as much as I do. All right. We did also find out that we loaded plenty of soap on the brush last time. So we're going to take out the brush from the water, let it drip a little bit. For a bowl lather, probably going to add a bunch of water to it anyway, so why not leave this guy all wet and drippy? Why not? Let's try that out. And we'll just do some mixing. Is there harm in loading a whole lot? Well, there's inconvenience in loading a whole lot when you don't need to, because then you've got to spend time adding water into it to compensate for all that soap that you put in the mix. like before, I think a lot of the water, because this was saturated, a lot of the water escaped and went down the sides of the tub here. So if I had a shaving mug that I put that puck in that had less room around the sides, obviously that wouldn't be an issue. Or if in this container, if I took some shreds off the top and then pressed them around the sides, then that would also help that problem. But let's just move along and see. We'll add some water here. Start adding that in. See if we loaded enough. The scent definitely on the stronger side. Of course, I do have the bowl 8 inches below my nose or something like that. Now I added not a whole lot of water, and so if this doesn't come together into something more viscous, then I can always go back to the puck and load a bit more. And it's thickening up. It is kind of an airy thickness, not really a creamy thickness. Let's add a little bit more water. Sometimes that's a good way to go, is when you've done bowl lathers enough and you know how much water you usually need to add to a soap for your lather, then if you just go ahead and add that water, like at this point, like I just did, and you mix for a little bit, either it comes together and you're good, or if it stays liquidy, then you probably didn't load enough soap. So sometimes it's good coming at it from the water perspective instead of, yeah, see, that did very nice. We got to start to get a little bit of a sheen on the lather, and it's looking less airy now. So that's a good move. Sheen, as a reminder for you, is not always a clue that you're doing well with your lather. There are a few soaps out there where it may very well develop a sheen at the exact moment when it's ready for you to use. Wouldn't that be cool and convenient if you were to stumble upon those soaps that are like that? I don't have a ton of lather here, but I bet it'll be enough to do the job. Yeah, because look at that. That brush is full of lather. Let's add a little bit more water. Sometimes when you are trying out a new soap base, a fun thing to do, at least for you shaving nerds like me, is to push it until it kind of breaks or loses that lightly creamy feel. And now you know. Maybe it will still be shavable at that point. Really good soaps often are. But at the very least, you'll know how far you can push it. Then maybe as you watch for signs of the viscosity, like lifting it up like that, and look at the tendrils that come down. What shape do they have when they land in the bowl? Do they instantly just become shapeless blobs? Do they almost pour back into the bowl? Those viscosity tips. See, I added that water in them. It doesn't look like there's too much water in here. I mean, that's one of the strengths of the tallow version, was that it would maintain that creaminess even with a lot of water. And so if this base can kind of approach that, and that's difficult for vegan bases to do. It is much easier to find vegan bases that fail at that than it is to find ones that succeed at keeping that creamy feel despite lots of water. So we're going to push this one and just see what we get. Okay, I think that might be homogeneous enough. So let's do a little drop test. And can you see the difference from my previous drop test, how it came down in little blobs, and they didn't really change too much once they hit. Whereas that guy, he kind of dissolved. Oh, and look at the slow movement here. So you can tell this has more water in this lather than it did a minute ago, just by the look of how the lather is behaving. Well, it definitely has a sheen on it. So let's see how it feels in real shaving life. Get my face wet again. Not too wet, because I am probably dealing with a lather that's got plenty of water in it, and so I probably don't need extra. My friend HD Shaves did a recent shave where he used tobacco as well. Oh, now this doesn't, yeah, see, look. I could tell it was going wrong because I was starting to feel the density of the brush because the lather was leaving it. And so even though that looks nice, it is not nice. Let's dip back in there. This has kind of lost its emulsion, really. It does not feel good in the brush because, see, it's leaving. It's leaving the brush. It's too wet. This base can't handle this level of hydration. So we're going to go back to the puck for a few strokes, and let's see what that does here. Already I can feel the brush better. That has worked with the moisture in the lather, and already see, the center is no longer void like it was before. I'm going to save some of this lather on my shirt and put it back in my brush. So, we just learned I pushed it too far. So this, see those, if it looks like the blobs are falling into the bowl and kind of and expanding out because they have so much water and stuff, then that looks like it's probably too much water in the mix. We want the blobs to drop and then kind of keep their shape, at least based on today's shave. And you may like yours drier than I like mine. You may want to use different milestone criteria. All right. Man, lots of water in that brush. It's kind of working its way out. All right, Nacet. Again, like yesterday, I'm not going to judge the slickness until I get this first pass whittled down. There we go. The water on the first pass, just now, that little kind of splash of water on my face. That was nice. That had a nice luxury, slick feel to the lather, to whatever I was kind of wiping off my face. Now, we went back to the bowl. Now, what was in the bowl, because it had not, it was too wet in the bowl, remember? And I added from the soap into the brush, so then the brush became a decent lather. And so now I believe I'm going to have to do that again. To bring the lather back up to a creamy. Now the brush feels normal again. It was starting to just kind of feel the bristles, empty bristles. Whereas now the bristles feel like they have the lather all up between the bristles. Much nicer. I was watching HD Shay's video. He had one where he was using tobacco, and his significant other, her birthday, and so he asked everybody to wish her a happy birthday on the comments, and he thought she'd get a chuckle out of that. So I did that. But I always envy guys who are able to not have the goatee, because they can do this awesome swipe across the whole face. And that just, I think that's really neat to experience the brush that way, instead of in kind of smaller areas like I have to do it. Yeah, see, this is moving nicely. I wondered if that face lather I did yesterday betrayed that the base was actually not protecting very well, since I ended up with a little bit of slickness. It's a little better today than it was yesterday in terms of residual or secondary slickness after already going over an area. The water now. So that feels good. So maybe I make a mental note, run this one a little drier than I might normally run it. There are other soaps where I kind of have to do that. We'll see if this one kept enough of that soap, or if I need to dip back into the tub. Yeah, the slickness is good. Razor moves fairly easily. Not elite easy like the old tobacco would and other tallow soaps that really value kind of pure slickness. They are moving easier than this. But it's still quite good. So this shave is confirming my first impression that this base is, I would call it, very good. I also am getting a little bit of a light tenderness after this shave, just like I did yesterday. Definitely will check out this base again when I use a more normal blade instead of one that is very old, almost 610 uses. So there we go. That represented a pretty good amount of loading I guess I'd still say maybe a little goes a long way, but maybe not like before. This is what's left. I could probably, you know, make another pass out of that. Maybe two, but they might, yeah, probably two. What's on the excess that you see can be one pass, and then I'll bet I can squeeze enough to be another pass after that still. So however much loading I did, I ended up with, in essence, counting the extra loading, about 5 passes of lather. Let me get a good rinse now. Once I'm done playing around with this soap, I'm going to dig up an existing favorite where I know that it is protective at a big level. Use it with this same blade and razor. See if I still get that same tenderness at the end of the shave. I mean, that could be a sign that it's time to quit with this blade, right? I don't know. Yesterday I used the aftershave, pretty much just alcohol, glycerin, and fragrance with this Jeris Musk. And I was pleasantly surprised. It's not overly heavily musky. That cool blue type aqua velva type scent, if you took that and paired it up with kind of a sweet musk, that's my impression of this. And it was surprisingly enjoyable. It wasn't heavy-handed or anything like that. So I could see people leaving a barber shop. Let's use this again today. It was fun. And it's cheap. I could see people leaving the barber shop and, you know, not overwhelming people with the cologne, or, I mean, with the aftershave that the barber had just put on, you know. But just smelling nice. Definitely could be seen as kind of a hipster type scent. And of course, older gentlemen too. All right, well, another good performance by the Vegan 2024 base from Tabac. Just a year old now. And that's pretty good. That's definitely a respectable soap. If you are in Europe especially, and you have this in the store, and you like the scent, then go for it. You know, instead of having to do something mail order, then that's awesome that you'd be able to pick up a good performing soap in a local store. I'm gonna clean my gear off. In fact, the scent of this aftershave could be very affected by the Tabac, because muskiness is very much a part of the Tabac scent. It's strong. And so it could be, because my nose has been used to the Tabac, it could be that with that particular aftershave, I'm not smelling the musky parts as much anymore because I've become desensitized to it. And so those other parts that I was describing, like that blue type floral, fresh, watery, aquatic, floral kind of aqua velva type blue, maybe that's more dominant because I just used Tabac. That may smell more musky to me when I use another soap. That has been known to happen. Well, that's today's shave, folks. Thanks very much. Thank you for watching. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Have a good night.